But I want to start out with, just basically now that Liz Cheney is canceled, and now this morning Christopher Miller, the guy who wrote the memo saying that the National Guard may not, help or arm or, there was a half a dozen different specific things that he said the National Guard could not do, could not assist the D.C. police. I thought I had it here. Apparently I don't. In any case, the guy who was the author of that memo, he was the acting Secretary of Defense. He was put into place after Trump lost the election. Has basically testified that the reason that he refused to have the National Guard there, when the National Guard had been there when, for example, weeks earlier, Black Lives Matter was holding a protest in D.C. Oh my God, we need the National Guard, it's black people. But when it was Trump toady insurrectionists, the response was, we don't want them to think that there's a military coup underway, as they're trying to do their own coup. I mean, seriously, think about that for a minute. He has gone full Trumpy. It's like what's happening in the Republican Party right now, and among people who are on the periphery of it, is many of them believe that their fate and future depends on basically sucking up to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is an authoritarian. Authoritarians are absolutely brutal. Louise was commenting to me this morning that when we lived in Germany and she read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shirer, and I confess I've not read every word in that book. She did, and carefully and slowly read through the whole thing, and just, as we were living on the soil where it happened. And she said the thing that really impressed me was the absolute brutality and unstoppability of the Nazis as they were coming to power, as they seized power, as they held power. Hitler showing up enthusiastically for the hangings of his enemies, the brutality of the brown shirts, the willingness to just absolutely and utterly destroy people, and the unwillingness to compromise, the unwillingness to have a conversation, the unwillingness to negotiate, the unwillingness to do anything other than, hey, it's my way or the highway. These guys are like the ultimate bullies. So where is this going? Where do you think this is going with the Republican Party? You've got now about 100 Republicans who just signed a letter about, most of them aren't even in office, saying, if you guys don't stop worshiping Trump, essentially, we're going to start our own party. You've got Liz Cheney, for God's sake, the daughter of, a war criminal, Dick Cheney, who was put into office by the Supreme Court, not the voters. And she's coming out and saying something that's actually, I think, quite noble. And I realize there are people who are saying, well, she's doing this because she wants to run for president in 2024, or she's doing this because she thinks that when the Trump passion is purged from the GOP, she'll be the most prominent figure to stand out, and that'll be a big boost for her politically and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is that there's a very good chance she's going to lose her seat next year. I mean, if the Trump fever continues until November of 2022, she's up for re-election. She already has a primary challenger who's a Trumpy in Wyoming. These guys only give up when they are totally defeated. And the Democrats and frankly, in my mind, the remaining, shall we say, good GOP, I disagree with them on policy, I disagree with them on taxes, I disagree with them on giant corporations. I disagree with Liz Cheney and her friends on just about everything. But how do you think this thing is going to play out? My take on this is that the only thing that breaks the Trump fever is the loss of Trump. He will not capitulate. He's not, I mean, by loss of Trump, it would either be that he comes out and he says, you know, I've looked at things and I actually lost that election. So just move on, guys. You don't need me anymore. You know, it's sort of the way Jimmy Carter bowed out after 1980. Okay, I lost the election. I'm going to go back to the peanut farm. But Trump's not going to do that. He's an authoritarian. He's essentially, at his core, a Nazi. And authoritarians don't back down. Authoritarians push and push and push until they're utterly defeated. Which means one of two things. Either this fever that the Republican Party has is not going to break until Donald Trump, as I said, number one, repudiates his own positions, which ain't going to happen in my opinion. Number two, has the ultimate and fatal cheeseburger, and something, God forbid, physically happens to him. I'm not wishing ill on anybody, including the former president. But he's in his 70s. It's possible. Although I'm thinking 70's not that old. Or number three, and I think this is the key, is that the Democrats, in one voice, basically stand up with some of the Republicans who have been speaking out and absolutely assertively repudiate this. And I was not encouraged by some of the hearings this morning where, again, I was seeing Republicans doing theater and Democrats trying to do, detail. And theater always wins in American politics. But this is what Liz Cheney said. She said, our freedom only survives if we protect it, if we honor our oath taken before God in this chamber and to support and defend the Constitution, if we recognize threats to freedom when they arise. Today we face a threat America has never seen before. A former president who provoked a violent attack on this Capitol in an effort to steal the election has resumed his aggressive effort to convince Americans that the election was stolen from him. He risks inciting further violence. Millions of Americans have been misled by the former president. They have only heard his words, not the truth. But he continues to undermine our democratic process, sowing seeds of doubt about whether democracy really works at all. I am a conservative Republican, and the most conservative of conservative principles is reverence for the rule of law, says Liz Cheney. The Electoral College has voted. More than 60 states and federal courts, including multiple judges the former president appointed, have rejected his claims. The Trump DOJ investigated the former president's claims and found no evidence to support them. The election is over. That is the rule of law. That is our constitutional process. Our duty is clear. We must act to prevent the unraveling of our democracy. And then she goes on to say, this is not about policy or partisanship. It's about our duty as Americans. We cannot remain silent. What's going to happen to Liz Cheney? What's going to happen to the Republican Party?